to do nothing. Nothing. And that is exactly what you did. You did nothing. For 1 month, you stood on the sidelines and you blamed it on a system when you as an individual with a conscience, with a heart, hopefully with an ounce of integrity, had an opportunity to do something.
Be careful.
Wow, these groups slip through the cracks are the Liberals to blame. Rachael Thomas has most of the floor, managing point of orders, putting in motions, and disagreeing with the chair. Everyone's frustrated here. Here's the clip.
It wasn't until August 21st that we saw any sort of comment made by you with regard to the allegations that, with regard to the conduct of Mr. Maroof. And so August 21st, that was when we first saw you come out on this. And even then, your statement was quite pat. I quote, you said that you were working to rectify this matter. So there was not even a statement of strong condemnation or making it clear as to where you stood as an individual, as a minister, or where your government stood. Further to that, there was no statement made by Minister Rodriguez, who oversees the Heritage Department. There was no statement made by the Prime Minister, Mr. Trudeau himself. There was no statement made by any other member, with the exception of Mr. Anthony Housefather, who brought this to your attention long before. In fact, you just told this committee that this issue was brought to your attention on July 19th or 20th. So July 19th or 20th is when you first became aware of this issue. You did not make a statement until August 21st. Again, that statement had nothing to do with taking accountability or responsibility for this matter, but rather just simply saying that you would basically look into it. And then, of course, things continued to escalate from there. Now, in front of this committee, you continue to refuse to take responsibility or to be held accountable. Instead, you're wanting to put the problem onto the vetting system. It's the system's problem. And so you're saying that the system will somehow be fixed. Now, you haven't exactly walked us through what that's going to look like, nor do we really have time for that today, but I would welcome you to table that for the committee to take a look at. But nevertheless, you are skirting the issue once again and saying that it is the system's fault. It is not the system's fault. It failed, yes, but today you as the minister are before this committee because it was your responsibility to act when you became aware of what was going on. And your first point of action should have been to condemn the racist and anti-Semitic actions of Mr. Maroof.
I did that.
And you failed to act for a month. For 1 month, you sat silent. And as the quote goes, all that evil needs to triumph is for men, good men, we assume that's you, to do nothing. Nothing. And that is exactly what you did. You did nothing. For 1 month, you stood on the sidelines and you blamed it on a system when you as an individual with a conscience, with a heart, hopefully with an ounce of integrity, had an opportunity to do something.
Be careful.
And you did nothing. I'm not done.
But
and
I
so
would
here
advise
we
you
are.
to be careful with your language. Thank you.
And so here we are before this committee. Our questions continue to be skirted and the blame continues to be put on the system. Now, the one thing that you did offer us today is that you do disagree with the funding that was given. You do believe that it should be pulled back and your department has taken that responsibility. But you further said that the CRTC needs to do the same because there's about $500,000 that has gone in that direction. In order for that to take place, it would be then important for Mr. Rodriguez himself to come to this committee and to be able to testify.
2 seconds, Ms. Thomas, I'm sorry.
Madam Chair, once I move a motion, I am no longer constrained by time.
But you have not
I'll read
started
my motion into
the motion.
I asked for your permission to read it into the record.
Go ahead.
Thank you. In light of the shocking testimony and the discovery that CMAC received over $500,000 From the CRTC dating back to 2016, I move that the Minister of Canadian Heritage be invited to appear before the committee at the earliest date possible regarding the federal funding provided to the Community Media Advocacy Centre, known as CMAC, by the Department of Canadian Heritage and the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission, in brackets CRTC. I don't need to remind this committee of the vile nature of Mr. Marouf's interactions on social media and the fact that he is a raging anti-Semite who was asked by this government to put in place anti-Semitic training or anti-racism training. I think I don't know, just it
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Me.
Yes, Ms. Sachs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And while I appreciate the member's deep concerns of what she says of being an ally to the Jewish community, as a member of the Jewish community, and that one that represents one of the largest Jewish communities in the country, many of my community are watching today and have very deep concerns that they would like to hear from the department about the vetting process. And while I can appreciate the members' so-called allyship to the Jewish community on this issue, by taking up the time of this committee and not allowing all of us, including herself, to ask these important questions of the time that was made today is really not allyship, it's just taking up space. So,
go ahead. What is your point of order, Ms. Thomas?
Madam Chair, right now, Ms. Sachs, the member who is speaking, is choosing to use her point of order as an opportunity to filibuster. It is not, in fact, a point of order.
I'm sorry, Ms. Thomas, would you like to chair this meeting? I think Ms.
yes,
Sachs had
happily.
to put up, I know you would love to, but Ms. Sachs has had a hand up. She had a point of order. I had to listen to what she was saying to decide whether it was a point of order or not. And a point of order means that we have moved away from the order of this meeting, which was meant to be listening to witnesses. So she's making a valid point of order, Ms. Thomas. Okay. And I think maybe, you need to be able to sort of try and be as collegial as you possibly can now and then.
Madam Chair, on the same point of order.
Yes, Mr. Nader.
Thank you, and I appreciate Ms. Sachs' commentary, and I do think there are obviously many questions that this department has to be held to account for. We just heard from Minister Hussein that no one's been held to account, at least no one that's been identified as being held to account. And just
Mr. Nader, please.
I'm getting to the point of my intervention, and Ms. Sachs did make note that whether we could speed this along and return to the question. And so, using the SIMS protocol that is common in other committees, my response to Ms. Sachs would be whether she would agree to support this motion to bring Minister Rodriguez. So if she could respond to that, whether Minister Rodriguez ought to come and whether she'll be supporting the motion, then I'm sure that we can move this along rather quickly if we do have the support from Ms. Sachs and other members of this committee.
I have no comment on the motion at this time. I'm simply asking for the time to be used as was duly appointed for today. Thank you.
Again, with respect, a motion has been duly moved, and to criticize or to make it seem like this motion is out of order.
I don't believe the vote's been called, so I have nothing to comment at this time, Madam Chair.
Who said point of order?
Sorry, Madam Chair, it's me, it's Anthony.
Yes, Anthony.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to say that I think Ms. Sachs answered Mr. Nader clearly, and I don't think it's fair to make those comments about Ms. Sachs. She had absolutely no reason why she has to tell him how she's going to vote on a motion that hasn't been voted on yet. Thank you, Ms.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes, who is that?
It's Peter Julie.
Peter? Yes, Peter, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Ms. Thomas. I have really important questions I want to ask the ministerial officials. This is a really important issue. Fundamentally, we're seeing anti-Semitism grow. I would ask through you to Ms. Thomas that she stop the filibuster and allow us to get more answers from the ministerial officials.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
À mon tour,
I would also like to add my voice to that of my colleagues. I was rather surprised to hear Mr. Nader suggest to Ms. Sachs that if other members of the committee decide to support Ms. Thomas's motion, that then the filibustering would stop, and then we would be able to proceed. I think it is very problematic, to be quite honest with you. We have one opportunity today to get to the bottom of this difficult situation. The Francophone community, the Jewish community, and others are in solidarity because we have been hurt by inappropriate comments, and we have one opportunity to speak about it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will take the floor again. With regards to the comment that was made concerning the Jewish community, I appreciate that Ms. Sachs is here as a member of that committee and wanting to use her voice to speak on their behalf. I also have a voice as an elected official in this country. And while I myself am not a member of the Jewish community, I do have many, many, many friends within the community. And so I too have the ability to use my voice. So I would ask that this does not be turned into a fight as to who can exercise their voice to the greater extent or in the right way. By asking Minister Pablo Rodriguez to come to this committee, that is one form of advocacy on behalf of the Jewish community. You having an opportunity, through you, Chair, Ms. Sachs having an opportunity to ask questions to the officials is another form of advocacy, but both are valuable. With that, I will step back into what is proper protocol for this committee, which is to entertain motions brought forward by duly elected members of Parliament, which I am. I have brought forward a motion to ask for Minister Rodriguez to come to this committee. I am asking for that because there is $500,000 worth of funding given through the CRTC.
Point of order.
Ms. Thomas, you are being repetitive, I may point out. Yes, who's that? Kevin, was that you? Point of order?
Madam Chair, I would ask you to ensure that it is a true point of order.
Thank you.
Ms. Thomas, I am running this according to the rules, so please don't tell me how to chair this meeting.
It was simply a question.
It wasn't a question, it was a statement, Ms. Thomas.
Before I was interrupted by my colleague who wished to filibuster over top of me.
Ms. Thomas, please do not decide that everyone does not have the right to speak in this committee. Only you.
Madam Chair.
So please go ahead. You have the floor. Please speak to your motion.
Madam Chair, I just would ask, You've asked me to be respectful in my tone and how I appear in this committee, and words were just put in my mouth. I did not accuse my colleague.
Ms. Thomas, you have the floor to speak to your motion. Will you please speak to your motion?
And I am saying that I was just wrapping up before my colleague interrupted and decided to filibuster over top of me. My comments are simple, and it is this. I am simply asking that the Minister of Heritage, Minister Rodriguez, come for 60 minutes of time in order to answer some very important questions that are being asked by the members of this committee and, more importantly, by Canadians. Thank you.
Thank you.